Welcome to the Podkey summary of Icon Composer for Beginners Group Lab from WWDC 2026. Apple's Icon Composer is starting to look less like a niche design utility and more like the center of how app icons get made across the whole ecosystem. The big themes here are sharper liquid glass visuals in the newer version, a much smoother workflow from familiar design tools, and a pretty consistent message from Apple. Keep your icons simple, geometric, and tested at tiny sizes if you want them to hold up everywhere. And underneath all that, there's a bigger shift happening from a pile of separate image assets to one flexible source file that can adapt itself. The 2023 update added a sharper specular highlight, and that matters because it gives edges more definition and helps complex shapes read with darker accents. You can place that highlight as an inside or outside treatment, which sounds small, but it changes whether an icon feels crisp, soft, inset, or more raised. Refraction also got a lot more controllable. Height and strength are separate now, and there's even inverse refraction if you want those creative edge-wrapping effects. Blur brings in that frosted glass feel. Ring shadows have more definition, and there are neutral chromatic options, so the shadow treatment doesn't always push the color in a weird direction. There are also practical upgrades, automatic gradients for system-aligned backgrounds, copy-paste for attributes across icons, and blend mode presets like +L, +D, and screen. So layer interactions behave more like real glass. Apple's larger pitch is pretty clear. Stop thinking in terms of separate raster bitmaps for every case, and start thinking in terms of a resolution-independent icon description. One Icon Composer file can adapt across iOS, macOS, watchOS, and whatever future versions need, while also handling light, dark, clear, tint, and mono appearances without designers manually exporting a stack of PNGs. If you've ever seen an asset folder turn into a tiny administrative crisis, that part alone is appealing. The workflow starts in the tools most designers already use: Figma, Sketch, Illustrator, or Photoshop. You build vector layers there, export SVGs at full canvas size, then drag them straight into Icon Composer. Apple also provides export scripts and templates that preserve layer positions relative to the canvas, which means you don't have to spend time manually nudging everything back into place after import. That's one of those quality of life details that sounds boring until it saves you from reassembling an icon layer by layer. A lot of Apple's advice comes back to simple geometry. Icons built from basic vector shapes stay recognizable when they shrink down to a tiny setting size badge, while intricate details just disappear or turn muddy. That cleaner geometry also makes the liquid glass annotation process easier and reduces the need to create a bunch of platform-specific variations. So the goal isn't to make something bland. It's to make something that still looks like itself when it's the size of a fingernail or the size of a billboard. The blend modes are where the whole glass effect gets a little technical, but the practical takeaway is pretty understandable. Additive modes like +L and +D help preserve foreground vibrancy on dark backgrounds. Subtractive options like screen or lighten push the background brighter, which can work better in lighter themes. So picking a blend mode is basically deciding mathematically how the foreground's brightness or hue should affect what's behind it. And because small changes can shift the look a lot, Apple's guidance is pretty simple. Experiment visually. Don't assume the first setting is the right one. If you open an existing Icon Composer file in the newer version, it automatically takes on the iOS 27 rendering changes, including the sharper specular treatment and reduced translucency. Importantly, that happens without recompiling the app, so older work can immediately pick up the newer look. From there, designers can manually fine-tune specular placement, refraction, and shadow intensity to improve legibility and make the most of the new defaults. There are a couple of useful rules around color modes. In clear mode, the icon's glass transparency stays constant and doesn't track the system-wide liquid glass slider, which makes contrast management a lot simpler. For mono mode, Apple wants strong dynamic range, deep darks, and bright highlights, so the icon still reads well when users apply custom tint colors. Accessibility is baked in here too. Mono mode enforces contrast thresholds, helping icons remain recognizable for red-green colorblind users regardless of tint or background. The broader design lesson is the old reliable one. Shape and shading should carry the meaning, not color alone. One of the most common mistakes is designing something that looks beautiful in Composer and then never previewing it at the smallest system size. That's how you end up with an icon that feels polished on a big canvas and muddy on an actual device. Another issue is overcomplicating the layer stack. The new refraction engine can be sensitive, and even small refraction tweaks can dramatically change the appearance. So the process really has to be iterative. Adjust, preview, small, adjust again. Apple's Device Hub app is useful here because it lets developers preview icons across devices, light and dark modes, and different wallpapers without building the full app. It also supports previewing the newer iOS 27 rendering, which is handy for catching those size-related or contrast-related issues early before they turn into a release week surprise. One of the more compelling promises of the whole system is cross-platform consistency. A single icon composer file can generate the right shape treatment for iOS's rounded square, macOS's larger square, and watchOS's circle, while keeping the brand identity intact. Even legacy operating systems get automatically adjusted corner radii, while still preserving the higher quality liquid glass rendering from newer systems. And if you're just starting, Apple's advice is refreshingly grounded. Begin with a clear visual metaphor for the app, sketch it on paper, simplify it, then move into vectors. From there, export clean layers, apply the glass properties in Composer, and keep checking the smallest sizes over and over. Tiny icons are honest in a way, big mockups just aren't. The through line in all of this is that Icon Composer gives designers more visual sophistication, but it rewards restraint more than excess. Simple shapes, careful testing, and a solid understanding of how light and refraction behave seem to get you further than piling on detail. Which is probably a useful rule for icons, and, honestly, for a few other things too. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.